My name is Clara Sutton, and at 34, I never thought I'd be standing on my parents' porch, uninvited to my own brother's baby shower. The soft melody of a string quartet and the gentle murmur of laughter drifted through the closed oak door, each note a small, sharp sting against my heart. My 16-year-old daughter, Maya, gave my hand a reassuring squeeze as I clutched the gift we'd so carefully chosen, its silver wrapping paper catching the pale afternoon light. When my mother, Eleanor, opened the door, her practiced hostess smile faltered, then vanished like a light being switched off. "You don't belong here," she said, her voice a low, cold whisper that cut through the pleasantries behind her. That's when Maya stepped forward, a strange and quiet confidence settled in her young eyes. She smiled, a sweet, almost beatific expression that was entirely at odds with the tension of the moment. "We know, Grandma," she said, her voice clear and calm. "That's why Dad's lawyer came with us." Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever had family drama that left you speechless. I grew up in a quiet, cedar-shingled house in a leafy suburb of Portland, Oregon, the firstborn child of Robert and Eleanor Sutton. For 3 years, I was the sun in their small universe. Then, my brother, Leo, arrived, and the planetary alignment of our family shifted, slowly but irrevocably, in his favor. The change was subtle at first, a collection of small moments that, when threaded together, created the tapestry of our childhood. For my 10th birthday, a milestone, I received a beautiful but practical new coat for the rainy Oregon winters and a set of classic novels my mother thought I should read. 2 months later, for Leo's 7th birthday, our backyard was transformed into a carnival, complete with a rented bouncy castle and a magician. He unwrapped a brand new telescope and a chemistry set far too advanced for his age. This wasn't a singular event, it was the rhythm of our lives. "Leo just feels things more deeply, Clara," my mother would explain with a patient sigh whenever I'd tentatively question the disparity. "He needs a bit more encouragement to feel secure." I, meanwhile, was the bedrock, responsible, dependable, and expected to need nothing. I was praised for my stoicism, a quality that felt less like a compliment and more like a justification for their neglect. In high school, I poured myself into my studies, maintaining a near-perfect GPA and channeling my quiet passions into volunteering at the local library's literacy program. I hoped my achievements would be a language my parents could finally understand. They attended one of my volunteer appreciation nights in 4 years, citing a prior engagement that I later discovered was a casual dinner with friends. Yet, they never missed a single one of Leo's mediocre soccer games, their cheers the loudest in the stands, their pride worn like a badge of honor. The day my acceptance letter to Reed College arrived, offering a generous scholarship, the air in our house felt thick with possibility. I found my parents in the garden, admiring the roses my father so meticulously cultivated. They were cooing over a clumsy, hand-thrown pot Leo had made in his ceramics class, a C+ effort he'd almost forgotten to bring home. When I shared my news, the letter trembling in my hand, my father glanced up from a particularly vibrant bloom. "That's wonderful, dear. We'll celebrate tonight." My mother added, "Just look at the glaze on this, Robert. Leo has such a natural artistic sense." We never did celebrate that night. Leo decided he wanted pizza and a movie, and my achievement was shelved, another quiet hope left to gather dust. The summer after graduation, at 18, my carefully planned future veered onto an unexpected path. I discovered I was pregnant. Daniel, my boyfriend of nearly 2 years, was a gentle soul with a poet's heart and a deep-seated fear of commitment. We had been careful, but life, I was learning, often ignored carefully laid plans. When I told him, his gentle soul panicked. Within a week, he was gone, leaving behind only a hastily written note and the scent of his sandalwood cologne on my pillow. My parents' disappointment was a palpable, suffocating fog. "We raised you to be more careful, Clara," my father said, his voice heavy with a judgment that felt far more personal than parental concern. "You've always been the responsible one." It was the first time they'd ever named that quality in me, and it was wielded as a weapon. The strangest thing happened in the weeks that followed. While a chasm of silence grew between my parents and me, they somehow built a bridge to Daniel. I learned, through a slip of my mother's tongue, that he'd been visiting them. He spun a tale of a terrified young man, overwhelmed but with the best of intentions. They offered him a sympathy they never extended to me, their pregnant, abandoned daughter. "He's just scared," Clara, my mother, defended. "He needs time to figure things out." Time was a luxury I didn't have. I had a baby on the way and a life to rebuild. While other mothers-to-be were celebrated with showers and support, I navigated my pregnancy in a bubble of quiet disapproval. Maya was born in the deep chill of January, a perfect, 6-pound miracle with her father's dark, thoughtful eyes and my quiet smile. My parents visited the hospital, their stay brief and stilted. They held her as if she were a fragile, unfamiliar object, evidence of my detour from the path they'd envisioned, rather than their first grandchild. I deferred my acceptance to read, trading a life of academia for one of double shifts at a local cafe and late-night inventory at a bookstore. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, a retired kindergarten teacher with eyes that held a universe of kindness, became my lifeline, watching Maya for a pittance when my shifts overlapped. She would praise Maya's first smiles and coo over her tiny fingers, showing more genuine delight in my daughter than my own family ever had. The following year, I enrolled in a physical therapy program at a community college, attending classes between shifts, my days a blur of exhaustion and determination. But Maya was my anchor. I was fiercely resolved that she would grow up bathed in the light of unconditional love, a light I had only ever seen from a distance. Leo, meanwhile, drifted. He dropped out of Portland State after a single semester, a decision my parents framed as a sign of his creative spirit being stifled by formal education. He lived at home, rent-free, until he was 26, moving through a series of short-lived jobs: barista, bike messenger, sales associate, each one abandoned when it became too demanding. He remained their brilliant, sensitive son, his potential a perpetual, unproven promise. Maya, from a young age, was perceptive. She saw the landscape of our family with clear, unclouded eyes. She noticed how her crayon drawings were politely accepted and then quietly disappeared, while the birthday cards Leo bought at the drugstore were displayed prominently on the mantelpiece. "Why doesn't Grandma love my pictures, Mama?" she asked me once when she was 6, her small voice holding a universe of hurt. I struggled for an answer that wouldn't plant the seeds of bitterness in her tender heart. "Some people show their love in quiet ways, sweetie," I'd said, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. Despite the years of quiet heartache, I persisted. I wanted Maya to know her grandparents, to have some connection to her family history, however flawed. I sent photos, I called on birthdays, I invited them to her school plays and piano recitals. I kept extending a hand, hoping that one day they might finally grasp it. But as the years unfurled, the pattern of favoritism only calcified, its shadow now long enough to fall over my daughter, too. By the time Maya turned 15, I had carved out a life for us that I was proud of. I was a licensed physical therapist at a well-respected clinic, specializing in pediatric care. The years of relentless work had paid off. I owned a small but charming condo in the Selwood neighborhood, a place filled with books, light, and the scent of freshly baked bread. I had built a community of steadfast friends who had become our chosen family. Maya had blossomed into a remarkable young woman, possessing my quiet determination, but with an added layer of confidence I'd never had. At 16, she was a star on her school's debate team and was already drafting essays for college applications, her heart set on studying human rights law. "I want to be a voice for people who don't have one," she'd told me, and the conviction in her voice made my heart swell. Leo's life finally found its direction when, at 29, he met Sophia. She was elegant and kind, from a family whose wealth was old and quiet. Her father, impressed by Leo's supposed untapped potential, gave him a position in his boutique marketing firm. Within a year, they were engaged. My parents were incandescent with joy. "Sophia is the best thing that's ever happened to him," my mother gushed over the phone. "She's helped him find himself." I bit back the retort that I had found myself, alone, while they were busy funding Leo's prolonged adolescence. Instead, I murmured, "That's wonderful, Mom. I'm so happy for him." The wedding was a lavish affair at a winery in the Willamette Valley. Maya and I received an invitation, my name misspelled as Claire. At the reception, my parents glided through the crowd, proudly introducing Sophia's family to a host of distant cousins and business associates. They never found a moment to introduce their only daughter and granddaughter. We stood near the towering cake, two ghosts at the feast, watching the celebration from the periphery. When Sophia announced her pregnancy a year later, my parents' elation was boundless. My mother called me a rare occurrence, her voice trembling with an emotion I hadn't heard in years. "Leo is going to be a father," she'd said. "Can you imagine, Clara? We're finally going to be real grandparents." The words landed like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. "Mom," I'd said, my voice barely a whisper, "you've been a grandparent for 16 years. "Oh, you know what I mean," she dismissed breezily. "This is different." And in her world, it was. Despite the profound hurt, I tried. I sent Sophia a heartfelt text, congratulating them and offering to share any hard-won wisdom from my own journey into motherhood. Her reply was polite but cool. "Thank you, Clara. My mother and sisters are guiding me through. I'm in very good hands." In the months that followed, my parents became even more distant. My calls were more frequently met with voicemail. When I did manage to get one of them on the phone, our conversations were clipped, their attention clearly elsewhere. I stopped by their house twice with Maya, bringing pastries from her favorite bakery, only to be met with flustered excuses about imminent appointments, ushering us out the door before we'd even taken off our coats. "They're hiding something," Maya observed with her usual acuity after the second time. I tried to brush it off. "They're just busy, honey. Grandpa's been retired for 5 years, she'd countered. And they were both wearing slippers. The strange behavior escalated. During one phone call, I distinctly heard my mother whisper to my father, "It's just Clara, I'll be quick," before she returned to the line with forced brightness. Another time, I overheard my father say, "Whatever you do, don't mention Saturday," just before my mother shushed him. Maya grew more watchful, her protective instincts on high alert. During a tense holiday dinner we couldn't avoid, my father casually mentioned a new restaurant they had tried the previous weekend. "That's funny," Maya said, her tone deceptively innocent. "Mom invited you to the farmer's market with us last Saturday, but you said you were both under the weather." The silence that descended on the table was thick with unspoken words. Leo quickly, clumsily, changed the subject. The moment of undeniable truth came, as it so often does in our modern world, via social media. Maya was scrolling through Instagram, her face illuminated by the phone's glow, when she suddenly went still. "Mom," she said, her voice tight. She turned the phone towards me. On the screen was a photo posted by my cousin Sarah. It was a sun-drenched group shot from my parents' backyard, taken the previous Sunday, a day my mother had told me was filled with church committee meetings. In the photo were my parents, Leo and a beaming Sophia, all my aunts, uncles, and cousins. They were gathered around a table laden with food, under a banner that read, "Oh boy." The caption was effusive, celebrating Leo and Sophia. "Can't wait to meet the little man. Hashtag Sutton baby shower, hashtag family is everything. Did you know about this?" Maya asked, her voice shaking with a quiet fury. I shook my head, a familiar lump forming in my throat. This wasn't a casual get-together. This was a baby shower, a party to which every branch of the family tree had been invited, except for the one I represented. Maya's face hardened. This is wrong, Mom. They can't do this. The next day, she called them. It was a bold move, one I wouldn't have dared to make. Grandma, she said when my mother answered, foregoing any pleasantries. Why weren't Mom and I invited to the baby shower on Sunday? My mother was flustered. Oh, Maya, honey, it was just a small, last-minute thing for Sophia's friends. Last minute? Maya challenged, her voice like steel. Cousin Sarah's post made it look pretty planned. It had a hashtag. My mother sighed, a sound of pure exasperation. Honestly, Maya, we didn't think you and your mother would be comfortable. It was mostly couples. And you know how sensitive your mother can be. Sensitive? Maya's voice rose. She's sensitive because she has feelings. Feelings you and Grandpa seem to go out of your way to hurt. I'm old enough to know when I'm being lied to. And I'm old enough to see that you treat my mom like she doesn't matter. You always have. She hung up before my mother could form a response. I was a tempest of conflicting emotions, immense pride in my daughter's courage and a deep-seated dread of the fallout. When my mother called me minutes later to complain about Maya's appalling disrespect, I found a strength I didn't know I possessed. She was right, Mom. She asked a fair question. Why were we excluded? It wasn't about you, Clara, she insisted. It was about Leo and Sophia. I am Leo's sister. Maya is his niece. How is an event celebrating his new family not about us? The conversation devolved from there, ending with my mother accusing me of being dramatic and poisoning my daughter against them. I tried to let it go, to retreat into the peaceful life I had built, but the wound was too deep, the exclusion too blatant. I was charting a patient's progress at the clinic when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my Aunt Carol, my mother's sister from Seattle. We weren't close, but she had always shown a quiet kindness towards Maya and me. So excited to see you at the shower on Saturday. Let's make sure we get a chance to catch up this time. I stared at the words, my mind struggling to process them. Another shower? I reread the text. Saturday. A different shower. I quickly checked my email, my voicemail, my physical mailbox when I got home. Nothing. There was no invitation. My fingers trembled as I typed a reply. Hi, Aunt Carol. I think there might be some confusion. I don't know about a shower on Saturday. The 3 little dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. Her reply was hesitant. Oh, Clara. I'm so sorry. I just assumed. Your mother and Sophia's mother have been planning it for months. It's at your parents' house. Maybe the invitation got lost in the mail. My heart sank. There was no lost invitation. There was only the cold, hard truth of a calculated omission. This wasn't just a shower for friends. This was the shower. And we were not welcome. When I picked Maya up from debate practice, the turmoil must have been written all over my face. What's wrong, Mom? She asked, her brow furrowed with concern. I hesitated, reluctant to lay another piece of this heavy burden on her young shoulders. But we were a team. We had always faced things together. Aunt Carol just texted me. There's another baby shower for Leo and Sophia this Saturday. At Grandma and Grandpa's. We weren't invited to this one either. Maya's face, which had been bright with the thrill of a successful debate, flushed with a deep, consuming anger. You've got to be kidding me. Another one? After I called them out on the last one? That's not just an oversight, Mom. That's a statement. Maybe it's just for Sophia's family and friends, I offered weakly, the excuse sounding hollow even to my own ears. Then why is Aunt Carol going? She shot back. And even if it were, you're his sister. You're supposed to be there. We're supposed to be there. This is insane. That evening, I gathered my courage and called my mother. I needed to hear it from her. Mom, is there a baby shower at your house on Saturday? There was a long, telling silence on the other end of the line. Who told you? She finally asked, her tone laced with irritation, not remorse. Does it matter who told me? Why wasn't I invited to my own brother's baby shower? It's a very intimate affair, Clara, she said, her voice taking on a lofty, dismissive tone. Sophia's mother is co-hosting. We had a very specific guest list. A list that includes Aunt Carol from Seattle, but not your daughter and granddaughter who live 15 minutes away. Please, don't do this, she said, her voice hardening. This is a happy time for our family. Don't spoil it by making everything about you and your feelings. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed and let the tears I'd been holding back for years finally fall. It wasn't just about a party. It was about a lifetime of being told, in 1,000 different ways, that I was secondary. My feelings, my presence, my daughter, we were all secondary. Maya found me there, a silent silhouette in the dim light of my bedroom. She sat beside me, wrapping a strong, steady arm around my shoulders. We should go, she said suddenly, her voice firm. I looked up, swiping at my wet cheeks. What? We should go. We'll get a beautiful gift, we'll walk in there, and we will make them look us in the eye. Maya, we can't. We weren't invited. That's crashing. It's not crashing when it's your own family, she insisted, her logic sharp and clear. What are they going to do? Physically throw us out in front of everyone? Let them. Let everyone see exactly who they are. I was torn. My instinct was to retreat, to nurse my wounds in private, to take the high road that I had walked for so long it was worn smooth. But another part of me, a part that was weary of being walked on, was stirred by Maya's defiance. Let me think about it, I said. The next day, on my lunch break, I found myself in a small, independent toy store. I bought a stunning, hand-carved wooden mobile of woodland creatures, a fox, a deer, a tiny bear. It was expensive and tasteful, a gesture of genuine goodwill. I wrote a card filled with sincere wishes for my brother and his wife, expressing my excitement to become an aunt. By Saturday morning, my decision was made. We would go. We would drop off the gift, offer our congratulations, and leave. No scene, no confrontation. Just a quiet, dignified refusal to be erased. As we got ready, Maya was unusually focused, her thumbs flying across her phone screen. She excused herself to her room to make a phone call, her voice a low, serious murmur. When she came out, her expression was resolute, a mask of calm determination that made her seem years older. Everything okay? I asked. Perfect, she said, offering a small, tight smile. Just tying up a loose end. The drive to my parents' house was a quiet journey through familiar streets that suddenly felt alien. The neighborhood was saturated with the scent of blooming jasmine and freshly cut grass. As we turned onto their street, my stomach clenched. Cars lined both sides, Aunt Carol's silver SUV, my uncle's pickup truck, the familiar sedans of cousins from all over the state. A pang of hurt, sharp and swift, went through me. They had all come. They had all been wanted. Maya sensed my hesitation as I parked the car. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Remember what you said, Mom? We're just dropping off a gift. We don't have to want to stay where we're not wanted. Her words, meant to be comforting, were a stark reminder of the situation. As we walked up the familiar stone path, the sounds of celebration grew louder. Music, laughter, the clinking of glasses. The soundtrack to a life I was not a part of. I rang the doorbell, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. For a fleeting second, I wanted to turn and run, to retreat back to the safety of our small, quiet life. But Maya stood beside me, straight and tall, a pillar of strength, and I borrowed some of it for myself. The door swung open. My mother's face, wreathed in a smile for her arriving guest, went through a rapid, visible series of transformations, surprise, confusion, and then a cold, hard mask of displeasure. Clara? Maya? What are you doing here? She physically blocked the doorway, stepping onto the porch and pulling the door partially closed behind her, a human shield protecting the warmth inside from our unwelcome chill. We came to drop off a gift for the baby, I said, my voice remarkably steady. Maya held up the beautifully wrapped package, a peace offering. My mother's gaze flickered from the gift to my face, her expression a mixture of panic and annoyance. You shouldn't have. You weren't invited. The words, spoken so bluntly, stole the air from my lungs. I had known it, of course, but to have it stated so baldly, so coldly, on the doorstep of my childhood home was a new kind of pain. I know we weren't invited, Mom. We just wanted to leave this for them. We won't stay. You don't belong here, Clara, she repeated, her voice dropping to an intense, urgent whisper. This is a special day for Leo and Sophia. Please, don't ruin it. Tears pricked the back of my eyes, but I forced them back. I'm not trying to ruin anything. I am trying to be a sister and an aunt, and I'm doing it despite being shut out by my own mother. Our tense exchange had not gone unnoticed. Faces began to appear in the large bay window, their expressions curious. The door opened wider, and my father appeared, a look of deep discomfort on his face. Eleanor, what is it? He saw us and froze. Clara. Maya. This is unexpected. Behind him, Leo emerged, with Sophia at his side. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, her face a picture of serene, maternal glow that quickly dissolved into confusion. Clara, what are you doing here? Leo asked, his voice a weak echo of our mother's. Making a terrible mistake, apparently, I said, the carefully constructed dam of my composure finally cracking. We just wanted to bring you this. It seems we're not even welcome to do that. Sophia looked from me to my mother, her brow furrowed. I don't understand. Why wouldn't you be welcome? Before anyone could invent an answer, more relatives had spilled out onto the porch, drawn by the drama. An audience for our humiliation. Aunt Carol pushed through the small crowd, her face flushed. Clara, I am so sorry. I truly thought it was just a mistake when I texted you. It's clear now it wasn't a mistake, I replied, the bitterness I'd swallowed for years finally rising. A heavy silence fell over the porch. In that quiet, I heard the verdict. Not a single person, not my brother, not my father, not one aunt or uncle spoke up to say, of course you belong here. Their collective silence was a resounding confirmation of my status as an outsider. My dignity was in shreds, but I would not let them see me break. I turned to go. Come on, Maya. Let's leave. But Maya stood her ground. She took a step forward, her chin high. Actually, she said, her voice ringing with newfound authority, I think we'll stay. My mother's eyes narrowed. Maya, that is enough. You and your mother are leaving. Now. Maya smiled then, a calm, knowing smile that was unervingly mature. We know we don't belong here, Grandma. That's why Dad's lawyer came with us. Lawyer? My father blustered. What on earth are you talking about? As if on cue, a man in a crisp gray suit, who had been waiting patiently in a nondescript sedan down the street, walked up the path. He carried a worn leather briefcase and had an air of unshakable professional calm. Good afternoon, he said, his voice even and polite as he ascended the steps. My name is David Harrison. I represent Mr. Daniel Sterling in matters concerning his daughter, Maya Sterling Sutton, and her mother, Miss Clara Sutton. My mother's face went white. Daniel? What could he possibly have to do with this? I was just as bewildered. I turned to Maya, 1,000 questions in my eyes, but she gave me a look that pleaded for trust. The lawyer continued, his calm voice cutting through the stunned silence. I believe it would be best to continue this discussion inside, unless you'd prefer your neighbors to be privy to these family matters. My father, his face mottled with anger and confusion, hesitated for a moment before stepping grudgingly aside. This is completely absurd. We stepped into the living room. The festive air had evaporated, replaced by a thick, anxious silence. Guests huddled in small, whispering groups. The mountain of gifts, the cake with its delicate blue frosting, the whimsical decorations, they all seemed like props on a stage where the play had taken a dark, unexpected turn. Leo approached me, his voice low. Clara, I swear, I didn't know Mom didn't invite you. I just assumed. I looked at him, and the years of casual neglect and willful ignorance made it impossible to accept his flimsy excuse. You never wondered why I wasn't here, Leo? You never thought to ask about your only sister. He looked away, ashamed. We gathered in the living room, an unspoken line drawn down the center of the room. My parents, Leo and Sophia on one side, Maya, the lawyer, and I on the other. The guests were a nervous, captive audience. Mr. Harrison placed his briefcase on the polished coffee table. "Unless, Sutton," he began, addressing me, "I realize this is a shock. Your daughter contacted my client, Mr. Sterling, nearly 2 years ago. She subsequently reached out to our firm last month." I stared at Maya, dumbfounded. "You what?" Maya took a deep, steadying breath. "Mom, I've been talking to Dad. He found me on social media. I was angry at first, but I decided to hear him out. He's different. He spent years trying to make things right." "Make things right?" I echoed, the words feeling hollow and meaningless. "After 16 years of silence?" "If I may," Mr. Harrison interjected gently, "allow me to clarify the legal situation. It's the reason we are here today." My father puffed out his chest. "There is no legal situation. You are trespassing at a private party." "On the contrary, Mr. Sutton," the lawyer replied smoothly, opening his briefcase. "There is very much a legal matter to discuss. For the past 14 years, since Maya was 2 years old, Mr. Sterling has been making regular child support payments." "That's a lie," I said instantly. "I have never received a single cent from Daniel." "Not to you directly, no," Mr. Harrison clarified. "When Mr. Sterling first attempted to establish payments, he was, by his own admission, young and intimidated. He contacted your parents, seeking a way to contribute without causing you further distress. They informed him that you wanted no contact with him whatsoever." My head snapped toward my parents. My mother was studying the intricate pattern on her Persian rug. My father stared stonily ahead. "They suggested," the lawyer continued, his voice devoid of emotion, "that he send the payments to them. They would establish a trust account," they said, "to be used for Maya's needs and her future education." "Believing he was acting in your best interests," Mr. Sterling agreed. The room began to swim. "Is that true?" I whispered, the question directed at my parents. My father cleared his throat. "We were protecting you, Clara. Daniel was unstable. We didn't want him weaving in and out of your lives, upsetting you and Maya." "So you took his money?" I asked, the sickening reality beginning to dawn. "For 14 years, Mr. Harrison said, pulling a thick file from his briefcase, Mr. Sterling has meticulously documented every single transaction. Monthly payments, plus additional funds for birthdays and holidays. The total amount, deposited into an account controlled by Robert and Eleanor Sutton, is $112,000. A collective gasp rippled through the room. $112,000. The number was so huge, so astronomical, it didn't feel real. It was the price of a small house. It was the cost of a college education. It was the sum of all my struggles, all my fears, all my sleepless nights spent worrying about money. We were saving it for her, my mother said, her voice a pathetic squeak. For her college fund. A fund to which only you have access, Mr. Harrison noted dryly. With no legal designation for Maya's benefit. Leo, his face ashen, took a step away from his parents. "Mom? Dad? You took money that was meant for Clara and Maya. We had expenses," my father blurted out, his composure finally shattering. "Your mother had to cut back her hours. You had college loans, Leo. We needed that money more than she did. Clara was always so resourceful." The cruelty of that statement, the sheer, breathtaking selfishness of it, finally broke me. "You paid for Leo's education with my daughter's money?" I cried, my voice raw with a pain so deep it felt like it was being ripped from my soul. Sophia, who had been silent, now struggled to her feet. "I knew nothing about this," she said, her voice shaking with disgust. She turned to my brother. Leo? Did you know? Leo's eyes flickered toward me, and in that fleeting moment of hesitation, I saw the truth. You knew, I whispered, the final betrayal, a quiet, devastating blow. Not all of it, he stammered. I swear. Dad told me Daniel sent some money to help with my tuition, to repay them for helping you when you were pregnant. I thought it was a few $1,000s. I had no idea. Not like this. Mr. Harrison closed his file with a soft, final click. Mr. and Mrs. Sutton, my client has authorized me to offer you two paths forward. 1. You repay the full amount with accrued interest, totaling approximately $134,000 within 60 days. 2. We proceed with filing criminal charges for fraud and mail fraud, along with a civil suit for damages that will far exceed that amount. Criminal charges, my mother whispered, her hand flying to her throat. But we're family. Family doesn't steal from a child, Eleanor, Aunt Carol said, her voice sharp with condemnation. The other relatives began to murmur their agreement, their shock turning to outrage. The family that had so easily cast me out was now turning on its beloved king and queen. We needed it. My father yelled, his face purple with rage and shame. So did I. The shout tore from my throat, raw and ragged with a lifetime of repressed pain. Do you have any idea? Do you? The nights I lay awake, terrified, trying to figure out how to pay for rent and groceries? The second-hand clothes Maya wore? The birthdays where she got one small, carefully chosen gift while you showered Leo with everything he pointed at? And all that time, you were sitting on a fortune that belonged to my daughter. Leo came toward me then, his face a mask of agony. Clara, please. Can we talk? Just for a minute. I nodded, feeling suddenly, profoundly exhausted. We stepped into the quiet kitchen, the sounds of the imploding party muffled by the door. I am so sorry, he said, his voice thick with unshed tears. I was weak, and I was selfish. It was easier to believe their story, easier not to ask questions, because I was benefiting. I was always benefiting. I looked at my brother, the golden child, and for the first time, I didn't see the favored son. I saw a man finally reckoning with the hollow foundation upon which his life had been built. I was always so jealous of you, he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. You built your own life. You were strong. You didn't need them. I always needed them. I needed them too, Leo, I said softly. I just learned not to show it. Sophia appeared in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed. Clara, I am so ashamed. I had no idea you weren't invited. Your mother told me you had a prior commitment. I'm so sorry. Her apology felt genuine, but it was a single drop of rain in a vast, arid desert of deceit. I think we should go, I said. When we returned to the living room, Mr. Harrison was calmly taking down my parents' information. Maya stood beside him, no longer a child, but a young woman who had reclaimed her own power. I walked to the gift table and placed the Woodland Mobile among the other presents. Congratulations on the baby, Leo, I said, my voice even. Then, Maya and I walked out the front door, leaving the wreckage of our family behind us. The drive home was a blur. When we reached our quiet condo, Maya finally spoke. I'm sorry I kept it a secret, Mom. About Dad. I had to be sure he was for real before I told you. I couldn't stand to see you get your hopes up and be hurt again. I pulled her into a fierce hug, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. You have nothing to be sorry for, I whispered into her hair. You were braver than I ever was. You stood up for us. The aftermath was swift and devastating for my parents. The baby shower ended abruptly, guests fleeing the toxic atmosphere of the house. In the days that followed, a cascade of phone calls came from relatives, each one expressing their shock and disgust. My parents, for the first time in their lives, found themselves on the outside, their carefully crafted image shattered. Nathan and Rebecca, horrified by the revelation, insisted on repaying the portion of Leo's tuition that had come from Maya's money themselves. 6 months have passed since that day. Winter has thawed into a gentle Portland spring. The world feels new, and so do I. My parents, through their lawyer, have begun making restitution. The payments arrive monthly, sterile, and impersonal. We haven't spoken. I received a letter, a long, rambling attempt at an explanation filled with self-pity and blame. I read it, and then I put it away. Forgiveness is a distant country I am not yet ready to visit. Leo and I are slowly, tentatively, building something new. He and Sophia bring my new nephew, a beautiful, placid baby named James, to visit. We drink coffee in my sun-filled living room and talk, really talk, for the first time in our lives. He is trying to unravel the boy he was to become the man he wants to be. It is a painful, necessary process, and I am finding it in my heart to wish him well. Daniel, or Dad as Maya now calls him, is a quiet, steady presence in our lives. He is remarried with 2 young sons who adore their new big sister. He is racked with guilt for his past, but he is channeling that guilt into action, into being the father he never was. Our relationship is a strange, delicate thing, a friendship built on the rubble of a teenage romance. There is no spark, no lingering what-if, only a shared love for our remarkable daughter and a quiet respect for the people we have become. Last week, Maya received her acceptance letter from Reed College. She will study law, she says, and fight for people who have been wronged. The money that was stolen from her childhood will now pave the way for her future. It's a form of poetic justice that is not lost on me. I look at my daughter, a young woman of fierce intelligence and even fiercer compassion, and I see the culmination of all my struggles. I set out to give her a life free from the shadows of my own youth, and in doing so, she became the one to lead me into the light. The family I mourned that day on my parents' porch was an illusion. The family I have now, a daughter who is my hero, a brother who is finally becoming a friend, a network of souls bound not by blood, but by love and respect, is real. It is strong. It is enough. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members who didn't treat you right? What helped you heal from family betrayal? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself and creating the family you deserve. Remember, sometimes the strongest family bonds aren't the ones we're born into, but the ones we build with love and respect. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you all the strength to create the healthy relationships you deserve.